Today we have with us this very important person called Mr. Gregory Sheedle. Welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad everything worked out for me to be here. So I'm
Yeah,
happy.
our pleasure. Okay, the audiences, I would like to tell you that he runs for Congress. He's a candidate for Congress. I've already introduced you that you're a candidate of Congress. So, if you yourself can tell something about you to the audiences, yeah.
Well, it's this was my fifth time running for Congress up in the northern part of California, the most northern part of California. That particular district is 90% white and 1% black. It's a mixed district in that there's a lot of agriculture. There's universities there, so it's a huge district. It's larger than several states that we
Mhm.
have. So it's a huge district with some very interesting characters, and so it's been a lot of fun running. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, okay. Great. The second question to you would be if you can tell something about your background, your professional and personal background.
Well, I have a bachelor's in public and a bachelor's in psychology because I started off I wanted to be a physician. So I did psychology and pre-med, then I went on to get a graduate degree in healthcare administration. And I was applying to medical school, and then my son became ill with cancer. He was like 20 months, and then that took me out of medicine, so I ended up going into law. And
Mm-hmm.
my last year of law school was when I started running for Congress the first time. I
Oh,
walked,
okay.
I walked into class, and the professor said, I was watching television last night, and I saw Gregory Cheadle on television. So that was the beginning of my
Okay.
my foray into politics.
Okay. So do you have any background to politics? I mean, your family, or you're completely new into it?
Completely new. I'm not a professional politician at all.
Okay.
There's no one in my family who's been involved in politics. No one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm
Okay.
a newbie all the way around.
Oh, all right. Oh, good for you. Okay. Yeah. Like you said that in California, where you are a part of, there are 90% white and 1%, I think 10% black.
No, 1% black.
Oh, one
One
person black. Oh,
one
just
percent.
1% black. Oh, okay. Do you find any the things that we are coming up with these racism and a lot of things are coming up and especially at these times.
Oh
So
yeah.
do you find any difference, or I mean it is as good as anywhere in the country?
No, I mean, my particular district is largely Republican, and
Okay.
so we have a lot of Trump supporters there. And I was doing well until I
Mm-hmm.
decided that I could not be quiet on the issue.
Yeah.
And that was with Colin Kaepernick. When Colin Kaepernick took a knee, I could not abandon him. There was no way in the world that I could say, there was no way in the world I could be quiet about it. And everyone in my district was against it. They hated football. They were going to boycott the NFL. No, 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 no. And so when I stood up and said that I was in support of Colin Kaepernick, my support in the district just plummeted because those people just could not stomach that a black man would stand up for principle. As long as we're doing something that would benefit them, it's okay. But once we
Mm-hmm.
start doing something that would benefit ourselves and call attention to the injustices that we have experienced forever in this country, all of a sudden everybody gets angry. And so that's when I lost a lot of support.
Okay. Okay. I think I just jumped into it
You,
too fast, but
it's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. My next question to you would be, what are your issues that you're running on?
Well, for me, the major issues would be campaign reform, jobs, and healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Campaign reform is very important because the problem that we have in the United States is that our Constitution initially was of, by, and for the people. Now it's become of, by, and for the corporations. And so the corporate influence is throughout every weave and fabric of our government. And so whenever a piece of legislation is coming out of DC, some corporate influence is being benefited and not the people. It's at the expense of the people. And so,
Okay.
campaign reform is so important. We've got to get the big money out of politics. And I've said for the longest that what we need to do, we need to have a maximum contribution of $2,000 per entity, an entity being a person or family or a business. That's it. And no money from outside the district. That would go a long way to stopping all this money that is just flowing into campaigns through PACs or whatever else. And so it's got to stop, because if it doesn't stop, it's going to get worse and worse. And soon we will have the poor versus the filthy, filthy rich. So it's got to stop.
Mm-hmm. So you said that one constitution is getting, is getting beneficial, is getting benefited by the money. If you can tell
Right.
something more about it, yeah. If you can just.
Well, I mean, when you look at, for instance, with food,
Uh-huh.
we have, I think, 8 companies in control of over 90% of the food in the United States. That's just too
Mm-hmm.
much power that's concentrated in a few entities. When you look at slaughterhouses, for instance, it's the same thing. You have about 8 slaughterhouses controlling about 80 to 90% of all the beef and pork that's consumed in this country. That's just too much power. You look at Monsanto with respect to its seeds and with respect to the bovine growth hormone. It's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got to get, those are just a few of the examples that are going on in this country with respect to the corporate interests.
Okay, so these were the basic reasons that made you run for Congress, or I mean, something else was also there which inspired you.
Well, my inspiration came because, like I said, I was in my last year of law school. And I was thinking, should I use all my gifts, talents, and education to benefit myself?
Mm-hmm.
Or can I use those things, or should I use those things to benefit society? And when you look at my background, coming from the ghetto, the inner city, whatever you want to call it, and all the headache and all the pain that I suffered, I felt so overwhelmed that I should use all these things that I have at my disposal to benefit society. Because what good is it if I become wealthy and society is messed up, even
Mm-hmm.
more messed up, because I didn't have my influence in it? And so it was it was an easy decision to leave all that behind and go into politics and do my best to change society.
Okay, so you mentioned that you suffered a lot. I mean, you had a lot to go through. If you can just tell us something about it.
Oh man, growing up we had what was called segregation.
Mm-hmm.
So blacks could live in one side, and they were not permitted to live in another area of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up in that, then we had the race riots. The race riots. We had the death of Malcolm X, the death of Martin Luther King, the Kennedys, Edgar, I forgot his name, Medgar Evers. We had his death. And so the race riots just destroyed the city that I was living in. And, my neighborhood looked like a war zone. We literally had tanks
Mm-hmm.
going up and down the street with these armed soldiers with their, rifles. And so that was traumatic. And, we couldn't go to any school that we wanted to. We had to be, like, there's one of a little girl who was ushered into school by the National Guard because she was a black girl going to a white school. So
Mm-hmm.
things like that are in my head indelibly. So those were some of the things. Then you talk about discrimination. You can't, they don't want you to work here because you're black. And if you do work here, they give you the worst jobs. You're the first one fired, first one laid off. And so there's a whole lot of that stuff. And especially, going back to where you live, you're not allowed to live in certain neighborhoods, certain parts of the city. And so all those things just came into play. You were treated below a third-class citizen in your own country.
Oh, okay. So back in 2016, if I go,
Mhm.
there was this big controversy where Donald Trump actually called you African American, if I'm not wrong.
Well, he said my African American, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And but before that, you were with him. You were with GOP.
I was GOP.
Yeah.
at that
But then
time. Yeah.
after, yeah. But after that statement and after that controversy that got created, you actually left.
I
You
left the
actually,
GOP.
yeah,
Yeah.
you left GOP. So if you can tell something about that, and do you see any change? Okay, first, my first question to you would be, if you can tell something about that controversy, and I mean, how did you get involved into it?
Well, so I was living up in Reading at the time, and Donald Trump
Mm-hmm.
was coming to Reading. And at first, I didn't want to go because I was tired because I had been campaigning for so long, and it was just so hard. I was just tired.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I decided to go, and a friend of mine got me a VIP section, like I'm a VIP, right? Not hardly. But anyway, a friend of
Mm-hmm.
mine got me in the VIP section. So I'm up front, and so anyway, make a long story short, Donald Trump comes, he's giving this speech, and he's talking. I was shocked because he was talking favorably about black people. He said he had a black friend, and he was wondering where he was. And I raised my hand, and I said, I'm here. And that's when he
Mm-hmm.
looked over and said, oh, there's my African American. But the problem was the media did not show me making a joke of it. Because it was funny at the time, because everyone around me was laughing because I was only black in the audience. And like I said, 90% white, 1% black. So I'm the only black in the audience. I just raised my hand and I was just playing. It was a joke. It was a joke. And it just went sour because of the way the media spun. And so that's all that happened there. But it was a mess because at that point, I got so much hate mail. I got phone calls. I got texts, emails, and on my Facebook. It was just some of the worst things you could ever imagine were said about me, and to me. And so it was disappointing that something that was supposed to be a joke and funny became something serious and ugly.
But the thing is, I mean, he was the one who actually referred to you as an African American. But
Right.
why were you the center of it, and why were you blamed of that particular incident?
Well, I think that the way the media showed it, they didn't show. They just showed him pointing, saying, "There's my African American." They didn't show the backstory with it. And so
Okay.
what the people saw was Trump being a racist by pointing out the only black person in the audience as his African American.
American, right.
So a lot of people were offended by it. I understand it. I understand how they feel, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, they don't know the whole story. So I have to be very forgiving in the way they perceive me, which is difficult to do. When someone's calling you these horrible names, it's difficult to be forgiving. But
Yeah.
I know what happened, but they don't. And so again, I just have to brush it off and do my best to tell people the whole story. That's one reason why I'm writing the book about it. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. But people also blamed you, and people also called you out as after that statement, after that
Right.
controversy, when you left GOP. So people also said that he actually is leaving after the controversy, but he was associated with GOP. For 3 years constant. So I mean, it was pretty much evident that if we call him a racist, or if because he only talks in the favor of white people. So if
Mm-hmm.
we I mean, it was pretty evident from the starting. So why were you associated with GOP back then, and then after that, suddenly, why did you choose to leave it?
Well, one of the things that I have done from the very beginning was distance myself from the GOP in that I always branded myself as an 1856 Republican, which drew a storm itself because by branding myself as an 1856 Republican, I drew attention to the real founding principles of the Republican Party and was doing my best to draw attention to those principles and bring the party back. But the problem was it fell on deaf ears. The Republican Party did not give a beep about the plight of blacks at all. And that's when I left. Because I was not, even though I branded myself an 1856 Republican, the Republicans that freed the slaves, that stood on principles. I mean, in 1856, you had whites who were killed along with the black slaves that they were trying to free. You
Mm-hmm.
can't get any more principled than that. But the problem was the Republican Party had been hijacked by another set of principles that I was not in favor of.
Oh, okay. Okay. So then you
You,
choose to leave it.
yeah, because what
Okay.
happened, when the Republican Party would not give ear to what I was saying, and when the Republican Party got angry at me for siding with Kaepernick, it was clear that they had no interest in black people at all. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was not going to be with a party that hated me. They would not, rarely would the Republican Party invite me to speak anywhere. Rarely.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
I'm like, I'm leaving. You guys, you don't want me. You don't care about black people. I'm out of here. And so I left.
Okay. So what's your take on the rage, which is, I mean, not only in US, but in, I mean, the whole world, the rage which is being created about the Black Lives Matter. So what's your take on that?
Wow, it's about time. And, I love that there's certain aspects of it that I love, in
Mm-hmm.
that the whole world has looked on the United States forever and has seen the injustices that black people have suffered. They've seen it. They have watched it over the years, and with the George Floyd death, it just unleashed this whole flood of emotion
Mm-hmm.
toward black people, because it could no longer be denied that we had been treated unfairly and with injustice and with inequality. It was undeniable. And so the whole world came in and said, we are with you now. Even those who were sitting on the fence, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, they got off the fence and they got on our side because they could not let themselves ignore any longer the injustices that we've suffered as a people.
Okay. Okay. Would you say the Black Lives Matter, the rage which is being, which is being created currently in US and all of the world? So, would you say it is correct?
The problem that I have with Black Lives, that like there are sections of Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
There's one end that has gone way off, and
Mm-hmm.
they're into a whole bunch of other stuff that does not address the needs of the black people at the moment. Then you have the true Black Lives Matter people who are concerned about the black people right now. They're not concerned about all these other things, way out things that this fringe group up in Seattle is doing. Black people have no interest in Seattle. If they were going to do anything, they would do something in L.A., in Oakland, New York, Chicago, or Detroit, not Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a whole other thing that's going on up there. And so, yes, I'm in agreement with a lot. I'm in agreement with the true Black Lives Matter, in that the group that is concerned about addressing the injustices that black people have suffered.
Okay.
Specifically, the black people have suffered. Not everybody else, just the black people that we've suffered. I'm in complete agreement with you.
So my other question to you would be, where we are talking about, on one side we are actually talking about, about getting racism out of our lives
Right.
and out of this world, and on the second hand, on the second side, actually, we are using the words like Black Lives Matter. So don't
Mm-hmm.
you think? So don't you think this particular this particular thing that is called Black Lives Matter itself is pointing towards racism by mentioning black?
No, no. I mean, because by default, everything else is white. So, when we come out and say black life, it's funny. No matter what black people do, no matter
Yeah.
what we do,
Mm-hmm.
uh, everybody else wants to be involved in it. They're offended. When black people, white people can stand up for themselves and there's not a problem. Jews can stand up for themselves and there's not a problem. Gays can stand up for themselves, there's not a problem. Transsexuals can do it. But whenever a black person does it, all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose because everybody's offended. We
Okay.
have suffered more in this country than any other group ever. And so we have unique injustices that must be addressed. We're the sickest people in the country. We're the lowest employed people in the country. We're the poorest people in the country. And people get upset that we want to have those things addressed by using Black Lives Matter. The police kill us. They beat the stew out of us. They don't do that to whites. You don't have black officers beating the stew out of and killing white people. And so, yes, Black Lives Matter is true. And so the unique injustices and the unique abuses that we have endured as people must be addressed as Black people, because not everybody endured what we went through. And that's why I have no problem with Black Lives Matter, because it's Black people that have suffered so doggone much in this country. So it's not racist at all, because we're not saying that we're superior. Racism says that my group is superior. We're not saying that we're superior. We're saying, we have suffered and we want to be healed. That's all we're saying.
Okay. Got you. Okay. Yeah, we get it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So, you mentioned police, like, you mentioned police in your sentence. Okay. So this thing is also going on about defunding the police department. So what's your take on that? Yeah, what's your take on that?
Well, I think it's a mistake, and I'll tell you why it's a mistake. When you defund the police, because when you look at any city budget, the police department has a whole lot of money. That they have the highest percentage. It's police and fire that has the highest percentage of a city's budget. Okay, there's a couple of things that police are doing far more than they ever did in history, and now the police are basically soldiers. They're not police; they're soldiers. They're armed like crazy. They have SWAT teams, all this other crazy stuff, and so that helped balloon the budget. But now when we talk about defunding, police, we have to be careful, because what happens is that if you take away, let's say you take away 50% of their budget, okay? And they're going to say that we can't operate under those numbers. The police union is going to come out, and what they will do, they will become even worse, because what they will do is now go after assets. We have what's called civil asset forfeiture in the United States, whereby the police, any law enforcement agency, can attach your property without a hearing, without a trial. And so if we defund police, we're going to have more police abuse, because now they're going to go after property, go after your car, your house, your plane, your boat, whatever property they can get. And they can take that money. They'll seize the money as well, because if you've ever had any money seized in the United States, you have to hire an attorney to get that money back, because they will fight and fight and fight to get that money back. And so now with the funding of police departments, we run the risk of police being far more abusive. And that scares me, because they're abusive enough as it is. So if I'm driving my, let's say I have a Benz. If I'm driving my Benz, I haven't done anything. They could plant heroin or cocaine or whatever in my car and seize my car. I'm innocent. I don't do any of those things, but I'm innocent.
Okay.
And the fact that they're so dirty and greedy, they can seize my car. So no, we have to be careful when we talk about defunding the police.
Okay. So what do you think needs to be changed?
Well, for one thing, what we really need to do, we need to have a standard set of instructions that police can give and a standard response that the citizen can give. It's just like right now they'll say that you are evading arrest or resisting arrest because you didn't obey their commands. If a police officer comes in and tells me to get down on the ground and bark, and I don't bark, and he shoots me and says I'm not following commands, what he's saying is true, because I didn't follow his commands, but his commands are ridiculous. And so one of the things that we need to have that's so important is that we need to have a set of uniform commands that police can give that the citizen understands. Okay, that the citizen understands and the police officer understands. That way, that would solve a whole lot of this thing. But right now, these guys are so testosterone driven. They're so macho. They just want compliance. And if you don't comply, they'll nail you with resisting arrest and all this other foolishness. So that's one thing that we can start. Another thing that we can start too is for police officers individually to have some type of insurance where if they are abusing someone, then their insurance pays. And also, they should forfeit any award that a citizen is given for the abuse or for the killing. A portion of that, all of it actually, should come out of that police officer's pension. And that would stop a whole lot of this.
Okay. So, like, you're running for, you're a candidate for Congress. So, you think you can bring these changes?
Well, yes, I do. And the thing about it, I'm arguably the most educated person to run for Congress in that district, period. With a bachelor's, a master's, a JD, and another degree. Arguably the most educated person to run for office in that district ever, period. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. The second thing is, I've been blessed to have far more media exposure than all the candidates who have ever run in that office ever. Mm-hmm. Ever. And so I know that my influence is there. And so what's key is to have programs like yours where I can talk about these things, where I can just plant the seed in someone's ear, and they can run with it. And when elected, I could do even more. But even right now, as a candidate, I've been blessed to have just so much power. I don't want to use power, but influence, in that a lot of people have heard what I've had to say. And so, yeah, I can bring about those changes.
All right. Okay. So, I also came across this news about abolishing qualified immunity would change the landscape of policing. Do you agree? What would you say?
Our criminal justice system has been set up in such a way that we do these bargaining things to get to the big fish, if you will. With respect to that, I think it's probably good at this time to get rid of it because we have allowed it, like a lot of things, they've been abused. And so I think it's time now that we shift it the other way by getting rid of it.
Okay. So you do agree about this thing?
I do.
Okay. So you also have said that the world has its eye on this independent congressional candidate because he stands for principle, not party.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, when I'm here in the United States, the United States is so divided. We're divided between Democrats and Republicans, conservatives versus liberals, and no one's talking to one another. The Democrats won't talk to the Republicans and vice versa. The Democrats will call the Republicans stupid. The Republicans will call the Democrats stupid. And I get tired of the fighting, but more importantly, neither group has done anything for blacks. Neither group has the interests of blacks at heart. And so by being independent, I can listen to both people on both sides, and both sides can talk to me, which is critical because we are not going to make progress as long as we are fighting one another. If we're fighting, we're not going to get anywhere because what happens as we fight and fight, guess what? The corporate interests get more and more money because the eye is not on the corporate interest, it's on each other. And the corporate interests want us to fight so they can get away with murder, literally. And so it's important that as an independent candidate, that more people start looking at being independent instead of being wedded to the parties, because very few people will agree with the entire platform of their party. Whereas as an independent, I am free. I don't have to worry about being corrupted by the party because the party wants to give me money. I don't have to worry about it. The party is going to tell me what to say? No. No. And so by being an independent, I can say what I want to say without somebody saying, shh, don't say that.
Okay.
And so I'm free to tell the truth.
Okay. So is there a thing that if a candidate comes under a party, So they have to go through the things that the party allows them to say or allows them to do.
Right. Once you take one penny of
Okay.
a Republican Party's money or the Democrat Party's money, you are under their control. They own you.
Okay.
And I am not willing to be owned by anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I never
Okay.
took a penny when I was in the GOP. I
Mm-hmm.
never took a penny from them. Never.
Okay. 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 So also my next question to you would be okay, if you can tell something about the homeless issues in CA and across the country.
Oh, easily. You
Mm-hmm.
know, one of the things that I talked about it earlier, but one of the things that I'm running on too is that of jobs. The problem that we have in the United States, again, with corporations, we need to enforce the anti-monopoly laws. You can
Okay.
have you can have a corporation that owns just about every aspect of it, of the field that they're in, and as a
Mm-hmm.
consequence, the bottom line is what's important. So what we need to do, we need to change the corporate model. We need to have it so that corporations, they don't have to be so greedy and just pay so much to the stockholders. That's one thing. The second thing is, again, with the anti-monopoly, we need to break these things up. We should not allow these corporations to own and control so much of a given field. And by doing that, we can have more and more people. And also, without the corporate influence, guess what? We can have small businesses prosper. Right now, we have so many regulations that only the large corporations can prosper. The small mom and pop, they're basically history now because they can't afford to compete. For example, wherever a Walmart goes, they destroy a bunch of jobs because the mom and pop can't buy the bicycles that Walmart can buy. They can't buy the whatever Walmart, they can't buy the clothing, so forth and so on, that Walmart buys. And as a consequence, they go out of business. But also, Walmart destroys the industry here because what they do, each year they just tighten the screws. And so the manufacturers of American products, historically American products, are now being done overseas to compete in order for that corporation to compete with Walmart. So that's just a little bit of the homeless situation. So what it is, we have to find ways to employ these people. And instead of having these large corporations with only a handful of people controlling them, we need to have more people working here. Because if we have more people working here, we have less homeless and we have less crime. You are not going to commit a crime if you're working hard and your time is occupied. You don't have time for crime. And that's one of the things that we have to address in this country. We need to have people. It's cheaper to employ people than to have police and prison. Much cheaper. And so we have to look at it from that perspective.
Okay. Okay. So, what would you say about during the times of COVID-19 and this Corona times? In what situation is U.S. is currently in what kind of situation?
What is the U.S. doing?
Yeah. I mean, is it helping is Corona helping U.S. in getting better, or it is a backdrop?
The Corona thing is puzzling to me.
Okay.
Because I haven't, I think there's something sinister behind this stuff because the numbers just aren't working out right. It's like they want control, and this is one way to do it. We've had pandemics in the past.
Yeah.
And there was not nearly the amount of control and hysteria that we have now with the deaths that we have. I was looking yesterday, we had 125,000 deaths in the United States, supposedly from coronavirus. But what concerns me is, what is a death from the coronavirus? And I've not seen that substantiated in the reading that I've done. There's a difference between someone who dies with corona and someone who died from corona. And that distinction has not been made clear. I can have a heart attack or heart disease. I can have asthma, and I could be tested for coronavirus, which is another issue because are they really testing for corona? Because there's a family of coronaviruses.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the one that's causing trouble right now. Supposedly is called COV-2. And so if I'm tested for coronavirus, and they're testing for coronaviruses in general, that's so different than testing from the COV-2.
Mm-hmm.
And so when these people are dying, I am not satisfied that we as a country and as the world are getting true numbers. And
Okay.
only thing I want is transparency. And I'm not feeling that we're getting true transparency here.
So, are you saying that the numbers are higher or lesser?
I'm saying that I don't know. My guess is that if we're testing for COV-2, given
Mm-hmm.
the 125,000 deaths that we have now, to me, they're suspect in that, number one, you can have a condition aside from COV-2, from COVID-19. You can also have the flu. So what are these people dying for? If you test for just one thing, the person dies, the person could have died from another thing as well, but we're not testing those things.
Okay.
And so, again, I want transparency. It seems like we know the result that we want, and so we're working hard to get that result, rather than being objective and saying, okay, this person died, this person had COVID-19 or COV-2, but he also had a heart attack, he had a stroke, which may or may not have been induced by the COV-2. And so those are the things that are important to me. And again, I'm not feeling confident that we have the transparency that we need to make good decisions.
And why do you think? The people are doing this. Why do what do you think is the reason behind hiding the numbers or behind this transparency?
Well, there's always been an issue of wanting to control.
Mm-hmm.
People want to control. It's an ego thing.
Yeah.
People have wanted to control the world forever. So it's not a novel concept that somebody wants to control the world. There may be some corporate influence as well, but the reality is, with 125,000 deaths, that cannot be justified given the amount of destruction that we've done to the world economy. What are we going to have? We're going to have a world with no one working. And so where's the money going to come from? Where's the money going to come from to run the hospitals, to pay the doctors, to pay the nurses, to pay the ambulance drivers? And so we have crippled the economy over 125,000 deaths. But now contrast that with the number of people who have died from heart disease at the same time. The number of people who have died from heart disease at the same time, during the same time, would be probably about 300 to 400,000 people. Mm-hmm. And then you couple that with cancer, you're going to be looking at another maybe 250 to 300,000 people. So then you throw in Alzheimer's. And so we have to look at this thing and put it in perspective. Unfortunately, we are going to die. COVID-2 is something that has happened. But can we justify what we're doing to stop it? Mm-hmm. And I don't know that that's a good answer. That all the precautions that we take, although forcing people to stay home is going to make them sicker. Yeah. You're closed in. You're breathing the same air in your home. Your immune system's going down. You're stressed because of all that the headlines in the newspaper and everything on television. The numbers are going up, and so people are freaking out. Their immune systems are crashing. You have people getting depressed. You have people committing suicide. You have people who've lost their jobs, lost their houses, can't pay their rent, can't pay their utility bills. They have the air conditioning on. And so we are actually killing people when we claim that we're trying to save people.
Okay.
So that's what's happening in the United States. And that's something that we have to wrestle with.
Yeah. Also, I also came across this thing where it was said that, COVID-19 is a very big, the pandemic is a big deal. It is, of course, a very big deal. But also, it has been created. The rage which it has been created. I think it is more of unnecessary too. I mean, it is a very big deal, but it is also I mean, has gotten out of context, if
Yeah,
you can, yeah. So,
it's bigger than it's. I mean, the response to it is bigger than it should have been.
yeah, yeah. And also, the government and the media has played a very big part in it. So,
A very
do
big
you
part.
agree?
Oh yes, I agree. I mean, because every time you turn on the television, it's like they are just creating this fear and this panic. And whenever you create fear and panic, people are not thinking rationally.
Yeah.
You know, we have a constitution in the United States. We are guaranteed certain rights. And
Mm-hmm.
so when historically, if you ever want to weaken a people, you get rid of their rights. Don't give them rights. And so
Mm-hmm.
we have surrendered our rights, thinking that we're going to have security, but it's nothing more than the illusion of security. And so we have crippled ourselves with respect to our rights because now we have mayors, governors making these sweeping regulations that they have no business doing. And
Yeah.
that sets a dangerous precedent for us, for as a free people, it sets a dangerous precedent because now we have become subjects rather than citizens.
Yeah. So, what would you say? I mean, what should US do to get out of all these things? What are the steps that US should take to make it? I mean, it is of course
Well,
a beautiful country, but a better place to live in.
well, I think that what we have to do with respect to COVID, you mean?
Uh huh.
With respect to COVID, what we have to do is make certain that the testing that we're doing is proper. Just because someone tests positive for COVID-2 doesn't mean that they're going to die.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. There are a number of viruses and bacteria within all of us
Yeah.
that, if left alone, would destroy us. But our bodies take care of it. So we have to have, number one, to answer your question even more directly, we have to have an emphasis on prevention of disease rather than dealing with an organism that's going to attack us. So, like the face mask and all that other stuff. The emphasis is on disease rather than on health. And what we need to
Yeah.
do, we need to have people be concerned about being healthy. Why in the world are we shutting down parks and the beaches? People need to be at the beach. They need to be at the parks and breathe some good air. And the sun's gonna.
But don't you think? But don't you think that will? I mean, we are majorly we are focusing upon social distancing. But if we open beaches or if we open parks, so that is going to hamper these things. I mean, social
when
distancing. Yeah.
when you have social distancing, you know, let me put it to you this way: what we're
Yeah.
looking at, the preventional measures that we've taken were based on mathematical models. They weren't based on real life stuff. On
Okay.
like Neil Ferguson out of that university in London comes up with all these fanciful numbers. Initially, COVID-19 was supposed to take out millions upon millions upon millions of people. It hasn't. So his numbers are off, and they've come down. Neil Ferguson and Fauci have come down considerably with those numbers because the model that they used was a farce in the first place. And so they've been embarrassed because they haven't been able to get the numbers. So that's one thing. And the second thing, again, is that if I am healthy and I'm exposed to a viron, my body is going to take care of that. But now, if I'm undergoing chemotherapy, if I'm elderly and sickly, you can be elderly but not sickly. But if you're sickly and elderly, then that's a different story. But, we need to be outside to get fresh air, to get the sunshine, to build our immune system. We need the vitamin D from the sun, a free thing. We don't have to worry about some vaccine. We have the sun. We have the fresh air. Those things are critical to having somebody being healthy. And the emphasis in the United States has not been on health. It's been on disease. And so we have to reverse that model and emphasize health. We need to have people eating correctly. We need to have people drinking water. And so once we have a healthy population, we don't have to worry nearly as much as we have been about this virus. And so that's what we have to emphasize, because once we have a healthy population, not only do we not have to worry about COVID, we don't have to worry about a host of other health issues as well. And so that's important.
Okay, so you are saying that U.S. as a country needs to focus more on the health department. They need, they need to make their people healthy rather than making them panic
Right,
about the
right,
situation.
right.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Again, there's nothing better than health.
Yeah, true.
Nothing better.
Yeah.
And that's where
Mm-hmm.
the emphasis has to be. Have a healthy people. It's cheaper to be healthy than sick.
Yeah, true. Okay. So, and about the economy, if I look upon the economy, how do you think can economy get back in track?
First of all, we have to open up, and there's going to have to be a flood of money coming out to encourage small businesses. I was driving around yesterday, and I
Okay.
saw so many closed businesses. Here, not too far from here, I saw there was a guy posted in his window. After working, he had a shoe repair place, a simple shoe repair place. He'd been there for 35 years,
Mm-hmm.
and this thing has shut him down. And so in order to get this economy going again, the big guys, the Walmarts, have to go away. We have to have small businesses come in, because what happened
Okay.
during this thing, when they shut everybody down, you had the large corporations still in business. You had Walmart, you had Target, but the
Yeah.
mom and pop places were shut down. We can't have
True.
that. So we've got to work to we have to support the small businesses like crazy, like we have never supported them before. That's critical. The big guys can take care of themselves. They don't need anything.
Yeah.
But the small businesses, we've got to find ways to support small businesses, whether it be loans, grants, or whatever. So that's what we've got to do to get the economy back. We've got to get people working. Once we
Mm-hmm.
have people working from small jobs, then we can start seeing our economy coming back. But until then, we are in deep, deep trouble.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So it was great talking to you, Mr. Gregory Cheadle. I
Oh,
mean, it was so
I
nice.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Eh, Yeah, same here. It was lovely talking to you. We got to know about so much. So if you can, also give a small message to the audiences, whoever is watching.
Well, what I want to encourage the audience to do is, number one, to stay focused and to keep the faith. Stay focused, keep the faith, and stay healthy. Those are
Mm-hmm.
the things that you need to do, and you will weather any storm. And I want to leave the audience with that.
All right. Okay. Okay.
All right?
Thank you so much for coming to our show. It was lovely
Oh,
having you.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and much success to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, guys, keep on watching Escape TV. That's it for now.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.